Hello, just another devlog. In the last week, I've been working on materials. I've been working on impact particles and impact decals. I also slightly adjusted the AI of the rescue and the zombies, which I'll try to demonstrate. And then I'll try to demonstrate a couple of different impact particles and on the glass, on a couple of different test physical particles here. And then I'll walk through how all that works. So let's see what it looks like. So first thing we notice, the zombies will chase after the rescues. They'll catch them and they'll stop them. Oh, but then if they notice you, they will come to you. I'll probably update that eventually to only attack you if they're not attacking a rescue. So anyway, we've got the blood impacts. That sounds a little bit loud, but the blood impact coming off of them. We've got blood decals that I don't think are working quite right on the bodies, but I'll figure them out. Got the rescues who also have, sorry lady, who also have, oh geez, okay, her hat has a blood decal. And so then I've got a couple of other decals here. Looks like I've got my footsteps are playing water sound right now for some reason. I'll have to fix that. But, well, I've got footstep sounds on, and you can hear they're a little bit different depending on the physical surface you walk on, although that's not set up with the latest round of physical materials I have. Over here we have water. There's no decals, but you can kind of see a basic impact particle. And you can also see over here, this is concrete, which has an impact particle, and it also has these concrete decals. Over here we have like plastic or something, maybe clay, something more deformable. We've got metal here, and we've got over here is this would be grass. You can see grass particles coming up. I didn't put down the materials. I was just testing the particles and the decals right now. Over here is like a plaster, and you can also see, it might be hard to tell, the angle at which you apply the decal can make a difference. Like, see how this one has a really long angle because I shot it from over here. So it's pretty neat. And these glass materials actually work a little bit differently. Unlike the rest of the materials, which are simply applied as a decal actor, with glass you have to spawn a static mesh actor and then apply a material to that static mesh. So this is what that looks like. As you can see, we've got our static mesh with our materials on it. And yeah, so that's what things look like here. Let's go take a look at how that stuff works. The first thing, I guess, let's take a quick look at our, well, I don't really want to go through the AI. I'll just do a quick walkthrough of it. We've got our zombie AI tree, which initially will just wander. And it will wander until it can, if it's set to wandering, my plan is to have most of the zombies idle, but then have a couple wandering. We'll see how that plays out. And then there's a chase player if they can see the player. In this instance, this should probably say chase actor because the can see player can now also be triggered by rescues, and so they'll chase after a rescue until they get into melee range. And then when they get into melee range, they will melee attack. If player is in melee range, they will attack. If while they're attacking them or while they're following, chasing the player, trying to move to them, if for some reason they lose sight of the player, they will move to the last known location of the player and look for them there for about 10 seconds before going back to wandering. So that's the zombie AI. The rescue AI is pretty much very similar, actually. Over here, they just wait if they're held. So what happens is, I should probably comment this, held. So what happens is if a zombie comes up and holds them, they will stay in place and they won't move so that the zombie can attack them. And then here, wander is where they'll just sort of wander around from point to point near their starting point. I might remove that. I might just have them be idle when they started, but I wanted to put in a wander for them, so that may or may not come into play. Follow player. If they find the player and they are set to following the player, once a rescue knows where a player is, it always knows where that player is. So it's constantly, once it's set to follow, it will basically constantly just move towards the player, and it shouldn't ever be able to lose sight of the player. And even if it does, it doesn't matter. It will just find the player again and move to them. But once it reaches the player, it will wait for a second or two until it, and like you run away from it, it will follow you. So what else do we have? We've got the next thing we did was impact particles. So I actually had to combine two separate asset packs I got. It's Thanksgiving Black Friday week right now, and so all of these assets that I've been looking at were on really deep sale, 50-70% off. So I bought some two different impact particle assets, and they kind of complemented each other. One of them had a really good function, this function for applying materials, and it also came with all of these physical materials. I just had to set those all up in the project settings. If you go to, oh man, am I going to forget where I put those? Physics, let's see, engine, physics. And then you just have to set all those up here for all of the physical materials they hand you so that it knows what surface type you're on. And then it also had this impact effects struct. So it made it really easy between these two functions here that they just had built. And also it changes, has its own built-in reflection value and speed value, so it can kind of adjust the particles depending on how the bullet came in, because it takes in the hit info from the hit. And so the particles are applied using this, but I really, really did not like the water particle in this system and some of the other particles. So I ended up looking around, and I found another, let's inspect P1. I found another impact particle asset that I looked at, although that one ended up being pretty nice and has a couple of decent particle effects that I haven't set up yet. But it didn't have this function. It didn't have any physical materials. It didn't have quite as many different impacts, and so, but the ones it did have were a little bit nicer. So I kind of merged those two into this system. So now, anytime I want to display a particle, I can call this shared function spawn particles, input particles on hit, and I'm calling that in my gun parent right here, and I can just pass in the impact effects, which is just a struct. It's just a struct of the impact effects, but you can edit it to be different per gun. And so, like in this system, this P1, P2, P3 are all different sizes. There's a small, medium, and large particle effect, which you could change on a per gun basis. And then it also takes in the hit result and the particle scale. So you can do things like that. And all you have to do is, and it will detect for itself what surface type you're hitting, and it will apply the appropriate particle effect. So that's really nice. And I got that working. It works really nice. I'm pretty proud of it. Should be able to import it into other future projects pretty easily. Beyond the impact particles, we also have bullet holes. And these bullet holes, let's see, it didn't come with its own blueprints, but I took a cue from the impact particles and built my own functions to get the decals. And now each decal, there's about 5 different decals, 5 to 10 decals per surface type. So I went through and made a bunch of functions here to get a random decal, basically switch on random, switch on int to return one of the materials And then depending on what material comes in, it will return the correct decal, a random version of it. You'll notice there's a couple I don't have that don't get decals: water, cardboard, clay, snow, leaves, electronics. I don't currently have decals for those, although I'm sure I could apply some other decal to them. The other thing you'll notice over here is glass is a special case. It requires a static mesh, and I'll show you what that means. So when we're in our gun parent and we're moving through all the things the gun does, and we go to apply decal, it takes in the hit result and, well, the impact point, which I suppose I don't even need to pass in technically, because I can just pass it from here, which means I can delete you, refresh nudes. All right, cleaned up a line. So it takes in hit result. It checks if the surface type is glass, and if it is glass, if it's not glass, it just applies a decal based on the rotation you're aiming at. Your gun specifically is aiming at, not the camera. So it is based on the gun, I'm pretty sure. And then also the impact duration, how long this particle should last, which I have as 10 seconds. Which I don't have for glass, but that's fine. I don't think glass should probably be permanent anyway. So here we take in and we make a transform, and we have to apply glass actor. So this is just a basic actor. Oh my goodness, where did I? Okay, it's right here. So it's just a basic actor with a static mesh on it. And the static mesh is actually applied kind of, it's kind of flipped to sort of face away from the point, the way it would get applied. So you can kind of imagine it like sticking onto a wall with this arrow in the direction of motion. And so this is what you'll see. And then, so this actor gets stuck wherever you shot. And then this static mesh actor has its material updated to a glass material, which we get from our get decal surface, which will return, one of the glass materials. And so all that works. Works pretty good. Pretty proud of it. And that's where I am. Thank you very much for watching.